You're watching live from Paris, and it's time now for Focus. Today we have an exclusive report on efforts to rid the Libyan coastal city of Sirte of Islamic State militants. Taking advantage of the chaos after the downfall of Muammar Gaddafi, the Sunni extremists seized Sirte early last year. But in the last few weeks, pro-government forces have been gaining ground, and now they're believed to be on the brink of victory. France 24's Jonathan Walsh reports.
The road leading to Sirte still bears the scars of recent terrorist attacks. The Islamic State group has lost 180 kilometers of coastland over the past 2 months.
Of course I'm excited. I've already taken part in war several times. And once you have, there's a part of you that always wants to go back. It's in your blood.
Ismail is a businessman from Misrata, but he's also part of a Katiba, one of the many armed groups that take part in the operation against the jihadists.
There's just been some fighting in a sector of Sirte called the 700 neighborhood. Our guys are probably there.
In fact, pro-government forces have already reconquered the area.
I took this weapon from an Islamic State group fighter. With God's assistance, we're now winning this war. God willing, we're going to kill them all.
Sirte will be their graveyard. We will celebrate the end of Ramadan here, and God willing, allow the people of Sirte to return to their homes.
It's a strategic victory. Only a few ruins now separate these fighters from the Ouagadougou complex, a huge conference center built during the Gaddafi era. It's considered as the jihadists' main stronghold. But on the other side, snipers are on the lookout.
I'm scanning their positions to try and spot them, so we can give them a taste of their own medicine, so we can eliminate them.
The so-called 700 sector needs to be entirely secured, cleared of all the booby traps left behind by the Islamic State group.
These houses over there are littered with traps and mines. They do this to buy themselves some time to slow us down as much as they can.
Thousands of men take part in Operation Al-Bunyan al-Marsus, solid wall in English. But Libya's regular army is in the minority here. 80% of fighters are Katiba militiamen. Yet for General Mohammed al-Ghasri, this is not a problem.
We went to war once we reached an agreement with the Katibas. Militiamen have to wear a uniform, must comply with military discipline, and obey orders by our national unity government and chief of staff. They can now really be considered as true soldiers. No one should have any doubts about that.
Without the Katibas, these militias created during the uprisal against Muammar Gaddafi, the Battle of Sirte would have been impossible. Most of them come from Misrata, 250 kilometers to the west. The city's main road, Tripoli Avenue, is adorned with trophies. There is also a state-of-the-art war memorial. Faces of men who fell on the battlefield are shown on a giant screen day and night.
I encourage all young men from Misrata and from the rest of Libya to go fight these godless Islamic State people. One of my sons works at the field hospital and another is in the army.
While his sons are on the front line, Ali fights the battle his own way. He works for a charity that provides meals to fighters every day.
This initiative is funded by donations coming directly from the citizens. So we're labeling all these items with logo stickers as a proof that the money is really being used the correct way.
This war has a taste of revenge for many people in Misrata. Militias from the city lost Sirte in 2015. We're back on the front line with Ismail. He wants to show us his Katiba's spoils of war, a metallic structure the Islamic State group used for crucifixions.
They would tie up people to this cross and let them hang. 3 full days for all to see. People had to walk by the cross and watch the agony. They weren't allowed to speak or say anything.
Hamid, the head of the Katiba, is gearing up. He's leaving his headquarters to inspect positions.
There's no room for the Islamic State group in Libya. These fanatics must be wiped out. This war is to defend our country and the whole of the Mediterranean region.
Pro-government forces also have snipers, even if many of them are young and inexperienced.
I'm aiming at enemy snipers. I killed one recently.
Jihadists are invisible most of the time, so the last pockets of resistance are shelled every time a target is spotted.
We've just identified Islamic State group activity. Some vehicles and also soldiers on foot. It was near the Ouagadougou Congress Center and the hospital, so we're going to strike them right now.
A victory against the Islamic State group might help establish the new government's authority, but it won't be enough to stabilize a bitterly divided country.
For more on this, I'm now joined by Mattia Toaldo, Policy Fellow for the European Council on Foreign Relations, Middle East and North Africa programme. Hello, and thank you very much for being with us. Now, in that report, we hear France 24's Jonathan Walsh say, without the Katibas, the Battle of Sirte wouldn't have been possible. Could you tell us a bit more about them? Who are they and what do they want?
These are part of the hundreds of militias that are working in Misrata. They have been there since 2011, coincidentally fighting mostly in Sirte, because between Sirte and Misrata was one of the most important areas of the fighting in 2011. They have been there for many years. They are the backbone of the city, and now they are the backbone of the unity government. So one should not confuse what is actually a victory, mostly of these militias from Misrata, with a victory for the unity government, which sits in Tripoli, which is hundreds of kilometers away.
So if they're in the majority, do you think they'll make demands then on the government if they manage to rid Sirte of the Islamic State group?
That's exactly the problem. How will the victory in Sirte, which hasn't been achieved yet, by the way, will be managed politically by Misrata, which is the main shareholder of the unity government? Will they reach out to the city of Sirte, which is a city mostly loyal to former dictator Gaddafi? Will they reach out to the east of the country where General Haftar is? Or will they claim that since they have suffered the most, since they have carried the heaviest weight in the fighting in Sirte, then they deserve the most, and that the door for dialogue is shut?
When you say deserve the most, what might they be asking for?
Well, positions in government or shutting the door to positions in government for other people. Let's not forget that 4 ministers were resigned, so to speak, on Sunday. In other words, the government said they were no more in place. We will see whether they will be replaced by other ministers coming from the east of the country, because these people came from the east of the country, or whether Misrata will say, well, we deserve something for all the efforts we have conducted. That will be the first test. And generally, what will be the litmus test for this will be the fate of General Haftar, who is the leader of the east of the country and whose role in the post-Sirte, post-political agreement Libya is still unclear.
Now, it's been a very quick advance on Sirte, pro-government forces gaining ground in just a matter of weeks. How do you explain that?
Well, the first reason is maybe IS wasn't that strong. There were probably not those 6,000 fighters that the Pentagon had estimated. Secondly, they were hit from actually three sides. The Misratans hit from the west and the south, and the Petroleum Facilities Guard hit from the east. And therefore, given that there were not many fighters from IS in Sirte, they succumbed and they had to withdraw in a tiny area in central Sirte. But let's not forget that they're now all there. There are hundreds of fighters, and they will not give up easily.
Now, if we just broaden a little bit and look at the country more generally, just how unifying has the new unity government been so far?
Well, it has unified factions which had fought each other until just a while ago. Some of the forces I just mentioned that fought in Sirte were fighting each other just a year ago. But it still failed to unify the governments in Tripoli and in Tobruk. Libya still, at least formally, has 3 governments, and the head of the government in the east, Abdullah Al-Tini, just gave an interview this morning saying that the agreement is not going to work and that he's not going to stand down. So still the reconciliation process is not completed. And then there are huge economic and humanitarian challenges, which is unclear whether this government is fit to overcome.
Many challenges then. What do you think they should be focusing on to bring about reconciliation?
Well, they need to reach out to the east of the country. The Prime Minister Sarraj is staying in Tripoli. He has still not visited the east. He has still not delivered any important speech about reconciliation. He has still not offered anything to those people in Cyrenaica, in the eastern part of Libya, who think that they have a reasonable fear of a new centralization in Tripoli, which will marginalize them as they were marginalized under Gaddafi and after that. And then, of course, the government will need to prove that it's effective in running public services, sewage, garbage collection, electricity. They've all a little bit of a disaster in recent months. And I think few peoples are watching us from Libya at the moment because they probably do not have power at the moment.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mattia Toaldo from the European Council on Foreign Relations, for joining us for today's Focus. And thank you for watching. I'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go away.